Welcome back. My name is Kit.
My name's Madison.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Streaming Things, Streaming the Boys.
The boys.
It's your boys with Madison.
Hey, I can be the boys.
Yeah.
I can be a boy.
One of the boys.
You one of the boys?
One of the boys.
The
Yeah.
boys.
I love it.
The
Madison,
days.
I'm so happy to see you again. It's been way too long.
I know. I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, fans of our Lost coverage, fans of our Yellow Jackets coverage, and other assorted things. Already know and love Madison. We're going to be covering The Boys Season 4, episode by episode, doing the full Streaming Things thing. And in the meantime, in the coming weeks, we're going to be recapping each of the seasons of The Boys prior, just to catch everybody up, have some fun, talk about our favorite moments, prepping our own coverage to be, just experts on all things The Boys leading up to season 4. So look forward to that. But we're also simultaneously covering House of the Dragon season 2. So you can look forward to a recap of season 1 here soon with our old founder, Andy,
first of his name.
Yeah. And then hopefully you enjoyed our Game of Thrones season 1, episode 1 episode that came out this past Monday. And look forward to the rest of that show being on the Patreon only. So if you enjoyed that, hop on there if you want some more of that sweet 2011
Sweet hot goss.
action. Indeed. There's some goss in there probably because we've totally already recorded that episode. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about our experience with The Boys in years past, what our overall thoughts are on season 1, and then pick out some of our favorite moments and plot lines and talk about the themes, all that kind of stuff. We will spoil the entirety of season 1, but I want to try to stay away from things that we know occurred in seasons 2 and 3 and Gen V for anybody who has not yet watched those shows. But hurry up because season 4 is dropping soon.
Like me.
Yeah, Steve hasn't seen season 3.
I haven't seen season 3 of The Boys. I haven't seen Gen V. I'm trying to catch up right now. I literally rewatched season 1 of The Boys last night. We're barreling through. Yeah, all day. All day. It was an all-day affair, and I squeezed in a Game of Thrones in there as well.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You went hard.
I did.
Yeah.
I happen to have, luckily, recently rewatched season 1 on my own because I'm a big fan of The Boys here.
Okay.
So, but yeah, this show, it's for those who need the context reminded to them, there are superheroes that exist in this world, but it is not your typical superhero fare. It critiques the idea of superheroes, if you will, and what it would be like in our society, I think, mixed with a heavy dose of criticism of, I think, capitalism.
Yeah.
Mostly that, but some other things.
Yeah, I would say the big theme of taking advantage of what society believes to be good and helpful to them and just monopolizing it and monetizing any possible way to make a buck off of the middle class people, I should say.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really love about the show is it takes a high concept of having superheroes in it, but then puts them in a world that is believable, that makes sense. It's very prescient for the times we find ourselves in. Even though the first season is what, 4 years old at this point? It came out in 2019. So 5 years old now. It's still
very relevant.
Very relevant. And I just love the idea of superheroes are real. They're still going to be on Marvel Studios somehow.
Yeah.
and it's less about saving people. It's more about PR and image and how you're scoring with different sections of people, 18 to 45, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they do it really, really well. And even down to the smaller scale changes, like what happens to a superhero that was maybe popular when they were a child superhero. What happens when a superhero gets addicted to drugs, that kind of thing. And I think they really handle all of these real world elements in a way that takes these larger than life characters, these godlike beings, if this were a Zack Snyder thing, well, they're gods.
The gods.
But now, no, they're actually really human. They just have way too much power. And I think that makes them far more interesting characters in the long run.
I agree.
A lot of it, I just had this thought from Mystery Men. I think is where that superhero that has sponsors all over his costume.
Greg Kinnear?
Yeah.
I forget what his superhero name is, but he's just Greg Kinnear to me.
Yeah, he's just like a NASCAR car.
Yeah.
So, it's been done before. And I think that what we're seeing now, because of the huge boom of the MCU, and to a much lesser extent, the DC Extended Universe, a lot of meta commentary and critique of superhero culture. Now, of course, these comics, The Boys, came out in 2006, I think.
Okay.
And of course, Alan Moore was doing stuff like this, less humorously, in the 80s, with Watchmen and so forth. But I think it's just more relevant than ever, which is why people enjoy. And The Boys, what I think is fascinating about The Boys is it works as this kind of tongue-in-cheek commentary. You can kind of sneer at the whole idea, but while at the same time, if you really like superhero movies like I do, you can also just enjoy it on that level. Like there's some cool shit in here, you know? So it's just neat all around.
Yeah, it lampoons the genre while also being a great example of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very well done. Very well done. So we're all big fans of The Boys, which is why I'll never say that again, which is why
The Boys.
Which is why we decided to cover it. So that's where we're at with this. But Madison, I'm curious to know how you were introduced to the show, if you watched it in 2019 or if it took you some time, and your overall thoughts in general on season 1 of The Boys.
So I know I watched this during COVID, so I didn't watch it when it was coming out. I don't even remember who recommended it to me, or if it just kind of like, oh, I saw it on the Amazon Prime like promo header and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. And it's during COVID and I'll just watch something. But I have to say, I mean, the first episode, like the first 10 minutes when Robin, are we doing spoilers? We're doing spoilers. When Robin like gets killed by A-Train, my mouth dropped. Like I just was like, holy shit, I've never, like it almost reminded me of Scream in a way, like doing a Drew Barrymore in Scream, where it's like, oh, you thought, and then, she dies. It was just not what I was expecting. And that's what I like about the show, is that it really builds you up and you really don't know how far they're going to go until they do it. But as far as again, I don't remember who introduced it to me, but I remember I binged this show. I watched all of it almost immediately. And then I think when I watched it, season 2 had just been released. So I binged season 2 as well. It was just a really good, everything that we said previously about just the themes of the show, how it, shows these superheroes in this different way. And it was just like unlike anything I've seen before, which I thought was really cool. And also the characters are so deep with their stories, and
pun intended.
Yeah.
So the deep.
And I also really enjoyed, I was telling Steve before we started recording, I really enjoy Annie and Huey's relationship. I feel like that's a very, I don't know, I guess hopeless romantic, but I do like timestamp the show's plot based off of where their relationship is, which I think is funny. But overall, like I think season 1 is a phenomenal introduction to these characters, this world, and this story. I love it.
Awesome. Steve, what about you?
Similar to Madison, I also don't quite remember when or who suggested. I think it was just from us just talking about the show on Crossing Streams. One of maybe you or Andy probably brought it up, and we're really, really excited about it. Because I remember I didn't actually start watching it until after all the episodes had aired. So like Madison, I also sort of like binge right through it. Mm-hmm. But like I said earlier, I was just captivated by the idea of, this world. I'm a sucker for these type of stories where they actually take the idea of a superhero, and they make it realistic and like, how would somebody with this skill set, with this backstory, with this image fit in the real world? That's why I really am drawn to movies like The Dark Knight, or the original Watchmen comic book is my favorite comic book ever. I like the Zack Snyder movie, but like not as much, even though it's like a direct ripoff. His tone's a little off. Anyway, I just like that idea.
Subtle jab.
I think that's one of his better movies, but the tone is a little off. I think when people really sit down and think about what does it mean to be a superhero, what are the other things that come out of society to support those things? What is taken away from other sects of society? And this show does such a great job. And I was actually honestly super just captivated by the cast too. The cast.
Super.
It's got such a great cast. Carl Urban as Billy Butcher is a whole lot of fun. Jack Quaid. I love Jack Quaid.
Should have been Randy Quaid.
Oh, can you imagine? Hello, the boys. I'm back. And Anthony Starr. I mean, I was not familiar with Anthony Starr before.
Schnarr. I believe it's Anthony.
Anthony?
Yeah.
Oh.
He's just call him Tony.
It is
Isn't
Anthony.
he?
I'm just, my eyes can't read.
I mean, there's usually an H there.
Yeah, it really.
Your brain puts it in.
Yeah, it did.
Is he Australian?
I actually don't know.
I think he's Australian.
Anthony Starr.
Anthony Starr. New
Nice
Zealand.
Nice count.
He's a New Zealander.
Oh man, that makes
He's
him
an
such a
Aussie.
better actor if a New
Kiwi.
Zealander's being this much of a dick.
Yeah, because they're so nice.
Hey man, we're gonna let all these people in the plane die? Fuck them all.
Come on, mate.
New Master 69's on the flight.
Yeah, I was totally unfamiliar with Anthony Starr before this show, and I'm like a lifelong fan of that guy now because he is just able to be one of the most captivating villains put to screen ever. Because this is a guy who, when he shows up, every scene he shows up in, after you really kind of like learn who he is, when he's in a screen, you're on the screen, you're automatically just on the edge of your seat. Like, what? This guy's horrifying. He's terrifying. What is he going to do? He could literally do anything he wants, and he's insane, and he's a sociopath, right? But also he's like charming in this really weird way, and they also do a really good job of humanizing him, which sounds bizarre. Like a lot of these characters are dog shit, amoral people, but the show puts enough effort to make them not all mustache twirling, like I'm evil for evil's sakes. Meh. They all have real human motivations and reasons, and in a weird way, you can kind of empathize with them at certain points in their story, even though they're terrible, right? And I think that is such a huge win for the writing of this show. But yeah, I really love this. I like the first season a lot. I honestly don't remember the second season that well. I remember very little, so I'm excited to continue my plowing through of The Boys. But Kit Laser, tell me, what are your thoughts?
I'm one of those
How
people.
were you introduced?
I think the show gets better and better for the most part, which is like the most you can ever hope for when you're loving a show. So I'm excited for you to revisit the other seasons. But I read the comics, not when they came out, but like slightly before the show. So I think it was one of those scenarios where the show was announced. I was really intrigued. I was familiar with Garth Ennis comics because he made Preacher, which is like a wild run that got also adapted into a TV show, I think by like Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen did this as well, right?
I think he's involved in producing. Yeah. So he's just a big fan. You know, and there's a part of Garth Ennis that is just kind of edgy. And so I can recognize the many, many flaws with that approach while also like being a mark for that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I read
You fucking mark.
when he made The Boys, basically it's in the foreword. It's his attempt to out Preacher. And Preacher was like
Wow.
wildly offensive and upsetting and different. And they basically told him like, you can never do that again. And so he, on a dare kind of was like, what if I could make something more fucked up than Preacher and have it sell? Then what would you say? So that was like his whole attempt. And he did that and it was successful. But because of that, I'm here to tell you, if you've never read the comics, the show is so much better than the comics, because the comics is just trying really hard to shock you. And there's way less, you know, arc for the characters. There's way less fruition of all these themes. It's just a lot of boobs and blood and butts. The 3 Bs.
Do we get dick? Do they let me see that dick?
No peen?
There's somewhat, but
Because I was taking track.
there's definitely a chauvinistic angle to
that's
the
unfortunate.
comics.
Because this first season, I was trying to keep track. There was like 2 dicks, like 9 dude butts, 1 girl butt, and no boobs.
Boobs.
No pubes?
So, for instance,
Let me see that dick. That's all I'm saying. Guys,
Show me
let
the peen.
Show me.
show it to Steve
Give it to me, daddy.
in his DMs if you have to. So, for instance, in one of the big differences is in the comics, you know, the part where in the beginning, when Starlight is first introduced to the Seven, she's sexually assaulted by the Deep. And that's a huge plot point of season 1 that we'll get into here shortly. in the comics, it is literally the entire 7. Like other than Maeve,
Wow.
all of them are standing there with their pants down, and she's in the middle. So it was just like, and I can see the showrunners being like, I don't think,
Yeah.
I'm glad that they didn't do that.
and everything is like that.
and that's a good choice, A, because B, I think that works better for all of the characters involved.
I agree.
Like,
100%.
because that's an important arc for the Deep's character, like, because he's such a smarmy, shitty, pathetic
Right.
character. And then, like, I think it works better that the others aren't necessarily in on it. So when they do the storyline they do with Starlight, they can react as part of it.
It's so much better for 1,000 reasons.
Well, it creates that tension with the Deep and Starlight later on, and she's, I don't know, the part where they're on the dock or whatever, and she's like, don't do that shit again, whatever.
Yeah, when they go out together on their first mission.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But also, ew.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to describe how different the comics are. It's all over the place with the missions that they go on. I was confused. So I loved the show when I first saw it. I'll just say that. And I've been obsessed with it ever since. It's one of my favorites. I think it's so well done. A lot of people don't like the ending of season 3. I'm gathering, at least when I made videos about it. I cried. Like it's really hitting. I can't wait for season 4. I love Gen V. Anyway, but I was a little put off at first because in the comics, the boys, Butcher and the gang, use Compound V to get superpowers, and that is how they fight the Supes. You know what I mean? Mm. And they don't do that in the show, and so I was like, it's kind of doesn't make as much sense that they're any threat at all. You know, how are they able to combat these superheroes in any way as mere humans? You know, it doesn't make any sense. The show does a really good job of getting creative about how they have leverage. They get dirt on different people, and they do, of course, have Kimiko, so they can fight somewhat pretty quickly. So it works, but I was just kind of thrown off because like the whole premise is that, but it also, I get why they did it because they have to give our protagonists some kind of moral high ground. Whereas in the comics, it doesn't even make any sense. They're just completely full of shit hypocrites.
Yeah.
So like, we got to stop these superheroes. Let's be superheroes, and it doesn't make any, whereas in the show, it kind of builds up and gives them some small moral high ground. But I was just so fascinated. You're right. The casting is perfect, but not only are all of our villains, quote unquote, fleshed out, they have arcs. They are sympathetic. In many ways, even Homelander, who is a sociopath, we find out he was raised in a lab from birth.
Yeah.
He's been manipulated and twisted his whole life. And also just holding that kind of power would be mentally dangerous for anybody. Just to feel like a god among men has got to be tough. I know it does for me. So so
brave of you to say.
But also our protagonists have villainous backstories. Huey's constantly smarmy. Butcher is borderline sociopathic himself, twisted by grief. Yeah. So on and so forth. So I just think it's fascinating. In fact, Frenchie and Mother's Milk, I think, are the most.
Wasn't Frenchie part of like a terrorist?
And he
cell?
was, but he's like such a sweet man, in the show.
Man,
He's different in the books too, but
Mother's Milk,
what can you say about him?
He just has.
He's doing his best.
I mean, clearly his mom hated him because she named him that, but
I don't think that's his government name.
He says it is.
Yeah, that's right.
He says it is. Is he lying? We don't know.
We don't know. I would change it.
I would. As soon as I turn 18, hello.
What do his friends call him? Mommy, like
Mommy Milk.
Mommy Milkies. Yeah, huge fan of this. And as soon as I was obsessed from day one, and I've been obsessed ever since. I stopped reading the comics. I think I finished them. I'm not sure. I mean, I read like 6 omnibuses.
Omnibus.
I'm not sure if that's all of them.
So do the comics exceed the storyline that's taking place in the show?
Meaning like, what do you mean?
So I assume, does the comic storyline exceed past what we know?
Like, do I know more than what has happened in the show?
Yes. Or is it canon enough to say that these are two coexisting like storylines?
Neither. Like it's gone so much farther beyond what the comics do. Like I think Herogasm, the big superhero orgy, takes place pretty early in the comics.
Okay.
And we didn't get to that till what, season
So
something?
is it
3?
safe to say that the show is kind of taking certain elements of the comic books and
Yeah, they're going in a
Okay.
completely different direction in many places. And another thing that I love about The Boys is that it has direct analogies to actual superheroes that we know.
yeah.
And enough to not infringe on copyrights changes, but like, like Homelander is obviously Superman.
Right. Yes.
Soldier Boy, who comes later, is obviously Captain America.
Yeah.
Maeve is Wonder Woman.
A-Train is the Flash.
A-Train is the Flash. I think Black Noir is Batman.
The Deep is Aquaman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's really funny to just kind of play with that.
Yeah.
In your mind, like, dude, Superman's a dick, or whatever.
This is so trite in some circles, but I always really loved evil Superman stories.
Yeah. Do you like Brightburn? Did you watch that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like, because to me, Superman's a way more interesting character when he's a villain, because it's just horrifying. What do you do against that? But in the truth and justice
You can leap
American
tall
way,
buildings in a single bound.
he can. That's true. He can also fucking fly. So who cares how much he can leap? All right.
But it's just almost like
When does a jump become flying? All right. What is the?
If you watch the Wonder Woman movies, that's a decent question.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't fly, but she can
jump.
jump so far that it's like,
Real fucking
you're flying. You're
Yeah.
flying.
Doesn't she lasso like lightning too?
Yeah, you're like
Yeah.
you're a flying squirrel.
What are you doing?
You're gliding.
You're flying with extra steps.
Yeah, exactly. But we kind of introduce, like, Huey is the audience surrogate. So that's how the
Yes.
show starts off. Again, as Madison mentioned, he's with his girlfriend, Robin. And right away you get this all-timer of a scene where she is exploded by A-Train. The Flash, analogy in this show.
Yeah, he runs through her. He doesn't like see her.
Yes.
And he just kind of runs through her and she just explodes in an instant.
And the presentation of that scene too is it's all in slow-mo. So you just see this like very quick instance where Robin is gone. And then there's this slow-mo of Jack Quaid's character getting like air blown on him. And then you just see little specks of blood falling on his face.
And the camera kind of pans to the right of him and you can see
Yeah.
like the trail of blood.
It's
And he's
just,
like holding her hands still.
yes.
Robin?
It has to be one of the more memorable moments of TV for me, honestly.
Yeah, so I think I watched this similarly around the same time as the first season of Invincible. And I don't know if you guys have seen Invincible. I won't spoil what that is, but the ending of the first season of Invincible has a very similar, like, what the fuck moment where you're just instantly like, okay, now I'm in. Like, whereas Invincible, that moment happens in the end of the episode. This happens in the first 10 minutes?
Literally first 10 minutes.
Yeah, to where you're like, well, and you immediately are leaned in and interested, and like A-Train's there, just covered in blood, like, I'm so sorry, I gotta go.
Well, he doesn't even say that. He's like, I can't stop.
Oh yeah, I can't stop.
I can't stop.
And you wonder, like, how many times has this happened with the Flash and the Justice League has just covered the same?
That's what's so great about this. Is all of these things, you're like, okay, this is how it would be, because in our universe, you have celebrities, you have movie stars, right? And we now know, as has always been the case, all the way back to like Fatty Arbuckle, right? Like, they're normal people.
My boy dropping a Fatty Arbuckle.
they're normal people with an extreme amount of influence and money. And so what that means is, if you're one of those people that thinks that like Hollywood is just one giant sex cult, that's not where I'm going with this, but that's sure. But in general, there are a lot of like super creeps and weirdos that do have mansions where weird shit's going on. And they used to get away with a lot more back when things were more private, and then they put that on superheroes and say, this is what it would be like. You know what I mean? They would be having orgies and they would be leading these Christian cults for money. They would take sponsors. They would have publicists and PR people, and they would go out on missions that help their brand more than who needed to be helped.
Yeah.
So I love that about the show, and I think it's genius. But so we start with Huey, who's like radicalized by the death of his girlfriend, Robin, essentially. He goes home to his father. He's offered money by Vought to sign an NDA about Robin's death.
I realized this time watching through, because I was watching with captions on.
Mm-hmm.
Robin, her last name is Ward. It's a nice little Batman reference.
Ah,
Oh.
Batman's Robin, played originally by Burt Ward
Oh.
in the original Batman TV show.
that's
Good-
probably
good
so many
catch.
little Easter eggs like that.
I know. That was
Good
the
catch,
only one
good
that I picked
catch.
up on, if I'm being honest. But
Yeah.
like, I was like, that's kind of fun.
It's
I never
super
realized
neat.
that. Yeah.
I love that Huey's dad is played by Simon Pegg.
Yes.
Because if you read the comics, Huey's character is modeled after Simon Pegg. He looks exactly
Really?
like him.
Yeah.
And so they just got that for funsies.
Because they were trying to make this into a series for a while, right? And they wanted Simon Pegg to play Huey, but it'd been like so many years that he had aged out of the role, basically.
He would have been a great Huey, like Shaun of the Dead era.
Yeah.
But that would have been a terrible show back then, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Or maybe like a fun Mystery Men type show, but it wouldn't have been the same for sure.
It
Yeah.
would have been The Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, the broad plot of season 1 is Huey is radicalized. He does not sign the NDA. He's approached by Billy Butcher,
Billy fucking Butcher.
who he thinks works for the CIA or FBI, and he's going to try to help him infiltrate Vought. So he plants a bug there, which is discovered by Translucent. And I love the idea that the guy who can turn invisible is just always jerking off in the bathroom and
He's
stuff.
just always walking around naked because he can.
He's voyeuring.
Yeah,
He's
well,
always
that's how he can
voyeuring.
be invisible, because the clothes you could see. So
okay.
he has to be naked to do the invisible thing. Not to defend him, because he uses
Well-
it wrong.
That just made me realize he fights naked.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Probably erect.
That's crazy.
It is. That would be a
Wow.
terrible superpower. You have to be naked all the time.
Naked. Well, I mean, he probably gets used to it after a while.
He definitely
he's,
did.
so
Definitely
he's the Sue Storm equivalent. That's hilarious.
Yes, exactly.
He's literally leaning up on a bathroom stall when he is like, ew, dude, you're naked. Don't lean up against those.
Yeah.
Maybe Vought.
Also, get out of the women's restroom, you creep.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
where we should start. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not talking about the cleanliness. I'll go in there. It's dirty.
You're
dude.
barefoot in a bathroom. That's gross.
Who knows what those girls do in there? This episode of Streaming Things is sponsored by BetterHelp.
BetterHelp.
You know, Steve, there's something I need to get off my chest.
What's that, fella?
It's been weighing on me. You know that I resigned at the day job recently, right? And I've been a little scared. There's a family to worry about. There's health insurance. There's capitalism.
Sounds like a stressful time.
But we all carry around different stressors, big and small. And it feels better when you bring something to the light and keep them bottled up. It can start to affect us negatively. And therapy is a safe space to get things off your chest and to figure out how to work through whatever's weighing you down. In my case, it's all of the stress, the misery, the fear. But I had to come over here and share that with you, and I felt better. You know, that's a real thing that happened.
Yeah.
Unloading all that on you and Erica and feeling better myself.
That's sounds like my Friday night.
Sometimes you just need somebody to listen. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. If you're not vibing, that's completely fine. So get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/streamingthings to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/streamingthings.
It's the month of May, a very special month that is very near and dear close to my heart. And it's that time of the month where we get to send a huge virtual hug and a round of applause to some truly stellar individuals. Our super patrons at the Try Before You Deny tier and above. You all make this show possible, and it's time you get a special shout out. So thank you very much to Stanton Valentino, Maddlestat, Susie Callahan, Anthony Corona, Sunshine, Huckleberry Cauliflower, Ashley Hazen, Mike from New Hampshire, Brett X, Emily Scarano, Lil Tickler, Svento7, Jay Scramo, Bluff Pum, AK Ashley Ray, Adam Busby, Wendy O'Laughlin, Jason Hawkins, Conrad, Kaylee Sampson, Rabbit Dog in a Barbie Car, Charlie Friday, Alexis Adler, Peaches, Emmy, Haley B, Joe Velez, John Collins, Amanda King, Trisha Bueller, Sun Loving Mortal, Suzanne Rode, Jen Robinson, Kalisha Reeves, Aaron Armstrong, Kevin Strother, Ashley Powers, Stephen V, Casey McCain, and Enza. A massive thank you to each of you and to all of our patrons at every level. Even if you're not at the shout out tier, your support means the world to us. We couldn't do it without you, and we hope you feel as much a part of the Streaming Things community as we do every day. And with that, how about we get back to the show? A fun little wrinkle in that guy's power is
Translucent?
Translucent, yeah, is that his skin is invisible because it turns into like some sort of like carbon metal that
Yeah.
is indestructible or something.
Well, I thought he said on the Jimmy Fallon show, which I found to be a funny scene in general, but his like skin bends light or
Yeah.
whatever, which is how you can't see him.
Yeah.
So
Can't see me. He's the John Cena of the 7.
yeah.
He's all about hustle, loyalty, and respect.
That's right.
Yes.
So Butcher hires or enlists Huey to get in there. That's his window.
Get in there.
We find out through the course of the season that Butcher is mad for revenge. He does not work for any kind of government agency. They're just being criminals. He used to, but there was a huge falling out. A lot of people died because of the way that he runs his crew. So MM and Frenchie had quit. And he was no longer sanctioned by the government to do the anti-soup work that he's doing. But he's obsessed because he believes Homelander raped and murdered his wife, Becca.
Yeah.
We find out by the end of the show that he did assault her, but she was not murdered. She was impregnated by Homelander and hidden by Vought. And so she's alive and well, raising a Homelander son. And that's the big plot twist. The other huge plot twist that's important to remember about season 1 is that soups are not born. They are not special or chosen by God. They are made.
They are made.
They are injected with compound V, which causes a superpower in whoever it's injected into.
And that was a huge point of contention between Annie and her mother, which I really do like Starlight's character. I actually bought a Funko Pop of Starlight when
Which outfit?
the outfit that
The classic.
No, I think it's or no, maybe it is the classic one.
Does it have a cape?
Is it the corporate one where they sexualize her?
I don't remember, I can't remember if her boobs are out or not.
Does she have a cape?
I can't. It's been a while since
Okay.
I don't have it out currently, but
Plus, it's a Funko. It's like just a giant head.
But that was a huge point of contention between Annie and her mother, and I really enjoy Annie's story because she's the juxtaposition of the soups and their mentality with how they look at the work that they do, right? Annie's character is more, I want to do this for the right reason.
Yeah.
And, the soups are like, we're literally just doing this because we have to and blah, blah, blah.
They're all jaded at best and diabolical at worst.
Yes. And so in Annie's whole life, her mom has been, and it's very consistent throughout, but you kind of see this, like, Annie's mother is very hyper focused on Annie's weight and like just making sure that she's the best as she could possibly be, almost for the benefit of her image.
She's a pageant mom.
She's one of those pageant mothers.
Yes. And so, another plot twist within their story is, her mom, Annie's mom, essentially like gave her child up to be, injected with compound V for this possibility of, this reign of her daughter to potentially become this like major superhero. And so you just kind of see Annie's innocence kind of like dwindle. And it's just good character story building with her. And also the reveal of like, oh yeah, these people aren't born with these powers. They're made, they're created. It was good story.
Yeah, it's huge.
She's one of the best characters in the show too.
Love Annie, and I love her arc of disenfranchisement, especially we get to satirize pageant moms, but also like church camps and stuff with the whole plot line of Ezekiel and the kind of shit he gets up to.
And I love the pairing of her and Maeve together because Maeve is the older member of the 7.
Yeah.
And she's a character who has been beaten down by the system and has given up. Like she's gone through similar things that Annie's going through currently, but she let it, it beat her down. She didn't let it, but like she was just the constant, abuse of this. And I love by the end of this season, Maeve has turned from this sort of like antagonist that kind of also poked at Annie to also being like, hey, don't, never stop being who you are. Yeah. And I love that story.
Because as we go through season 1, we kind of learn more about Maeve and how, she had a partner, a girlfriend before joining the 7 or while she was joining the 7. And it was the image of the 7 that, or I should say Madeline or I forget the PR woman's name, the redheaded woman that's like working directly under Madeline and is trying to keep all of like the images of these soups like intact or whatever. And she's always like,
Ashley. Ashley. Yeah. Ashley.
And so, Maeve kind of had to hide her lifestyle and be suppressed from, being with the woman that she loves. And, she resulted to alcoholism. And so another part of the show, another element of the show is how they use like stats and numbers to kind of up their, their viewership or, their I don't know, the popularity of these certain characters.
You're big with the 18 to 35 demographic.
Yeah. And so the fact that, you know, because Maeve is a queer individual, like that immediately lowers her likability or like popularity. And so it's just, as we get to know Maeve, it just turns into a more like, oh, she really got fucked with the system, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that all the soups are all essentially influencers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they're worried about all of those kind of stats, and they do brand deals, and it's
Poor ones too, because the Deep's doing brand deals for SeaWorld basically, and he hates it.
Yeah.
and he wants to save all the creatures. And it's interesting how they're able to take something so insidious early on with the Deep's character and make him a comedic relief character. And I think successfully throughout the run of the show, because he's so pathetic. Like
He
the
is
whole
pathetic.
bit where he's stuck in Ohio, God love him.
Sandusky.
And, you know, do you want a fresca?
That part when he first gets to Sandusky and that dude that's showing him around, I think his name is Steve, is showing him around and he's like, we're home to Cedar Rapids. It's the largest theme park in the world.
Yeah. It kind of made you feel like we should move, huh?
I've been to Sandusky and people be like that.
They're so proud of it.
Yeah.
I mean, understandably, it's a dope ass park. It's great.
Yeah.
I'd move there. I'd be the savior of Sandusky if they let me.
I mean, it's got the world's largest theme park. Do I need to say that again?
Yeah. I think it's funny because the show, you know, he does this terrible thing in the very first episode, but then the show actually like kind of shows you, hey, it's kind of cathartic in the way, because at the time there was the Me Too movement happening around this time. And so it was just kind of nice to see a piece of shit like that keep getting knocked down. Like, in a perfect world, you should. And he's not being punished for the right reasons, but he is being punished.
Or adequately. I mean, he should just go to like prison or something instead of, right? But
exactly. But because he is such a pathetic character, so whenever people do punch down on him, you're like, good.
Yeah.
Keep doing that.
he keeps trying to, like when he saves the crab and the crab dies and he tries to save the dolphin.
Oh my God.
And it flies to the front
when
windshield.
the dolphin dies,
That was
holy
so
shit,
funny.
that was wild.
Yeah.
Because there's that little like slow motion part where they make eye contact right before it
He sees him.
flies out the front windshield and gets hit by a truck.
Yes. There's a lot of different ways that your life can end up being a soup. And they do explore that even in this first season. Like we get to see A-Train's love interest, Pop Claw, who was essentially in like B movies, almost pornos, was kind of her career, right? Mm-hmm. And in the comics, one cool thing about the comics is you get to explore all these characters and their old teams a lot more. Like the Seven are the most popular, highest selling superhero outfit.
It's like you could say,
but there's 20 of them, you know?
yeah, you could say the Seven is like the Injustice League, and then you have like a Thunderbolt team, and then you have
all the other ones.
All the other ones,
X-Men,
X-Men,
you know, you got all
yeah.
this shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's real. And the X-Men is my favorite, like, mainstream comic story. And I think this is the most similar to X-Men, if anything, just because of the variance in powers.
Variance of
just like the
powers, and
mutants.
also I think the social commentary as well.
Sure. The idea of, deserving to live. And
Do you watch 97? X-Men 97?
I'm way behind, but I'm actively watching it. I love it so much.
Really good. Have you gotten to
No.
episode 4 yet?
Episode, I just finished 3.
This is on
Have fun. Episode 4 is
this is on Disney Plus, right?
It is. It's so good.
It's very
I've
good.
been wanting to rewatch the 2000s X-Men movies, so I'll watch those.
Me too.
Oh yeah.
I'll watch those and then tune in to 97.
Classic.
Big fan. That's where it all really started. Not Iron Man, but with X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
You know what happens when lightning strikes a toad? Same thing as everything else.
Thank you, Halle Berry, for that science lesson. Yeah, but we get introduced to the plot line of Pop Claw. She accidentally sits on a dude's face and kills him. We've all been
landlord.
there. You got to pay the rent.
Yeah.
And she get a little crazy because of that V.
Hey,
And that's, by the way,
who
why
hasn't thought of doing this to their landlord?
Who hasn't shot up? Yeah, no sympathy for that man.
I'm just
Creep.
kidding. Yeah.
In the what was I going to say? That it's important to know why A-Train killed Robin was because he was juicing on V, right?
Yeah.
It's part of the reason why he was unable to control himself.
Jesse T. Usher, by the way, is great as A-Train. Like
They're great.
because the series starts and you're just like, man, fuck A-Train. He like doesn't care. He's laughing about Robin dying in the club. But the more time you spend with them, the more you're like, oh man, I feel really bad for this guy.
Yeah, they're able to really flesh out and put the work in on each of these characters. And, you sit with him and training with his brother and the background that he comes from and his whole, they were all at one point thinking they could join the Seven and yes, be famous and successful, but genuinely help people. And then they get there and it's like,
right.
We can't save those people. That's not what the demographics are wanting right now kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like, they're not, unlike Marvel and unlike DC, the superheroes are not in charge of
they're corporate assets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That the government fear, which is exactly how it would be if this was real, which is what I love about it.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the best acting, like not only does he have great range in terms of what he's able to perform as, Jesse T. Usher, there's that scene where he goes and he does a Make-A-Wish, but the kid wished for a visit from Translucent, and that kid is not letting A-Train forget about it. And the way he's just like, hey man, that's okay, I'll come back. And he looks at the doctor. The doctor's like, no, he's not going to make it. And he's like, well, I'll teach you how to be fast just like me. And the kid's like, you'll teach me how to be faster than cancer. And then he's just like,
and then you cut to Madeline, who's like, this is what happens when we don't give him a script,
Yeah. The incredible, I'm shocked we haven't actually mentioned this yet, but the incredible Elizabeth Shue as Madeline Stillwell.
Madeline Stillwell.
Love her.
Mommy.
Can I say, I was not super familiar with a lot of the cast when I first watched this show. Like, I did not know Jack Quaid was Dennis Quaid's kid.
Mm-hmm.
I knew Carl Urban, you're going to laugh, from Ghost Ship. That was
Of all Carl Urban movies.
Not Lord of the Rings.
Not Judge Dredd.
Not Dredd. Ghost Ship. Okay. He's
I told you would laugh.
He's one of the premier writers of Rohan. That's awesome.
Anyway, I wasn't very familiar with most of the cast, which I think was another element that made me really like it, because I don't particularly enjoy when...
I'm sorry. That's like watching Game of Thrones and being like, oh, Sean Bean, that's the guy from National Treasure.
Yeah.
Which probably
that would be what you'd say. Oh.
I personally like shows that use actors that, or at least in my opinion, aren't super well known, simply because it allows, at least in me, my thought is writer like hierarchy with characters is you have to give like the higher paid actor or like whatever, the star of the show more screen time or whatever. There's a little bit of like logistical thought there, but I like how when you use actors that are just kind of not super high in Hollywood or whatever, it kind of equals the playing field. At least in my head, that's how I look at casts such as this. And so I really liked it. And also I got to be introduced to actresses like Erin Moriarty, Jack Quaid, Karen Fukuhara. I knew Chase Crawford from, I don't know, was it Gossip Girl?
Ghost Ship 2?
You guys are going to hold on to that.
I've never even seen Ghost Ship, but should I? Is it fire? Is there pirates?
Does Ghost Ship start with the tension line?
Yeah.
Okay, I have seen that one.
Yeah, it's like fine, but it's like one of those movies that I like have to revisit because I watched it at a very core like mental development part of my life, and so it's just when I revert back to my childhood, I'm like, oh yeah, Ghost Ship, I remember that. But anyway.
Oh man, this show has Viggo Mortensen. I love him in Hidalgo.
That's like a funny bit for like, I think you should leave.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I could see them doing that. Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. Like Game of Thrones did it. They hired Sean Bean, who was really well known, but also he's not like an A-lister or anything. But all of the rest of the cast, other than Mark Addy and Lena Headey to some extent, were kind of relative unknowns. And at that point, you're casting for exactly who you think is going to do the best job in the role, and not a lot of times. Now, famous actors are often famous because they're very talented in what they do, but they're attached to projects to even get it made, to get it off the ground. You know?
I just think it shows a lot of confidence in their writing capabilities to be like, okay, we don't need to hire a clickbait actor to be in this show because the story itself is going to sell itself.
Yeah.
So,
but they did get Elizabeth Shue.
They did.
Who was fantastic as the breast milk teasing handler of Homelander.
That was crazy.
It's got this motherly relationship. They've got a sexual relationship. He's all kinds of fucked up. And he gets jealous that she has her baby, Teddy. And he starts to get jealous of that baby taking her attention.
Every time she would have that baby in the office and they would just cut to Homelander just leering at it, I did chuckle. Like, even though I'm like, that baby's not long for this world, I'm sure. But it's so funny that to see a grown man like just so petulantly jealous of a baby.
Incensed by that baby. You're right. You said it earlier that Anthony Starr does a fantastic job. You never know what he's about to do. And you know that he's capable of literally anything because he's so strong. And who's going to stop him? And he's now more and more aware of this. It's kind of fucking wild. And the tension is off the charts and he plays it so well. And I actually watched, there's a 5-season show that I highly recommend that he's the star of before this called Banshee. Yeah. I've talked about it before. And Banshee is so fun. It's kind of old school. It's like a dad show. Like it is very much just
like a Reacher.
Kind of like Reacher. Yeah, exactly. But I would say even more dad. Yeah. There's a lot more sex.
If you took Yellowstone and Banshee.
Yes. Yeah. Yellowstone, Reacher, sure, but also more so. Like there's just more sex, more violence, and that's all it is. It's the same people that made the show Warrior.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I know Warrior.
It's just that's what it's for. It's back in the early aughts when you'd walk into a room, you would kill 6 or 7 people, and like, God, that really got me hard. Let's make love now. You know, like, and it doesn't make any sense plot wise. That's just how prestige TV was back then, like True Blood, that kind of thing. You know, it was just like, let's all orgy real quick, and then we go fight some more people. Why not? This is good TV. That's why we're doing this.
Orgy real quick.
That's what Banshee was. But Tony Starr was the lead of that, and he plays like this bank robber who ends up hiding in this small town, posing as the sheriff. And it's really fucking fun because he's doesn't want the FBI to find him, but also slowly he's actually like starting to try to actually police the town. But this town he happened to hide in is full of the most diabolical criminals known to man, you know, so there's all kinds of crazy shit going on all the time.
He looks rugged.
He's a sheriff who will just like rip people's throats out. Yeah. Well, Madison, I honestly think you would love that show.
I'm already looking at screen grabs and I think I will like it.
I tore through it in like 2 weeks, all 5 seasons, because it's just such an addictive dad show. It's like, oh, it's dumb as shit. Why would he do that? I'm absolutely watching another episode. You know,
he kind of looks like he kind of looks like Chris O'Donnell.
Kind of like when he was Robin.
Yeah, a little bit with the pointy nips.
Yes, that's how I identify other men. I'm like, what's the nipple shape?
That's how I identify Chris O'Dowd.
Pointy, like square.
Those look like Steve's nips. I think we could be friends. Our nips fit together like puzzle pieces.
That's your superpower. You can read people by their nipples.
So that's my next question. I do want to get there.
Whoa, I can't wait to hear what this is.
Not the nipples. I forget where I was even going. I do want to briefly talk about Karen Fukuhara, Kimiko. Probably my favorite character. I kind of stumbled because I'm not positive about that, but I think it's my favorite character. Mostly just called the female in the comics. Yeah. There's literally the character's name is the female.
Well, she's referred to as the female in all of the synopses. Synopses. Jesus, I swear I have a college education. For the first, I think 6 episodes on IMDb.
Because she doesn't talk much, right?
I don't think she talks at all.
And her whole plot thread is essentially someone is trying to give Compound V to terrorists to boost the reputation of the need for soups from the government, right? Mm-hmm. And you would think it would be Stillwell's plot, but it was actually Homelander that decided to do that. And it works, essentially. But that's where Kimiko's character comes from. And so she's introduced, and Frenchie is just immediately smitten and sympathetic and tries to recruit her.
He knows what it's like to want to go home.
He is.
He knows what it's like.
Mon frère.
Mon cher.
I don't know. French stuff.
French stuff.
I am a French man. He speaks Franglish. Is that a thing?
Oh, it's me, the French.
I'm the boys.
I'm on the boys. You can call me Frenchy Arc.
So I just wanted to throw out, because we hadn't talked a lot about Kamiko, and it was unfair because I'm obsessed with Karen Fukuhara. I love that character.
Yeah.
So I did want to point that out. But I want to know, since you guys know how Compound V works, when you inject it, you get a power.
Sure.
You don't know what it's going to be. It's kind of tied to your own genetics, I guess. It's always different. There's even a really amazing scene in The Boys where there's a baby with laser vision who's basically Cyclops from the X-Men.
That was funny.
And Butcher has to use that baby.
I love how he loves the baby immediately. Like when I first see, he's like, they're making baby soups, gross. But then he uses, I fucking love this kid.
I want this around all the time.
Don't be bad or I'll come back and spank you.
Yeah. He will. He'll frame that baby. So what power do you think Compound V would give you, Madison?
Well, first, can I say I did a little deep dive on Reddit because I thought there would be some really funny answers to this question. I have my own personal one, but these are just some funny ones that I found. Someone said able to cure cancer, but only on Friday the 13th. And then someone said you can turn fish pee into lemonade. Those are just funny. And then someone wrote you can burp on command. I said, bitch, I can do that already.
You got that Compound V?
You're just excessively burping. Mine was more I think shapeshifting would be the one that I would pick, or just to literally have the ability to focus, like Adderall, literally just let me be able to focus on something for 5 minutes. So that would be my realistic, please help me in life answer. But I feel like shapeshifting would be the coolest power to have if I was to take Compound V. And I think I'd be able to,
turn into a wolf, or turn into a
turn into other people. Turn into other people.
Like a Mystique.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
If you could turn into other people, could you turn into other things?
Like a chair?
I don't think I can.
Would you get people to sit on you?
Actually, yeah. Maybe I can't. How about this? I can't turn into other people. I can only turn into inanimate objects.
You'd still do it?
Yeah. But it would be like I would be, I don't know, a sword or something, but it would have curly hair, something on it.
For whatever reason, it has googly eyes.
Yeah, it has freckles on it. Whatever the shape that I turn into has elements of me that are identifiable.
Yes.
What would your superhero name be?
IKEA. I don't know.
Okay.
IKEA with the power of transforming into inanimate objects.
Yeah.
Interesting.
My God.
And then I would have to speak in, what is it, Swedish, in order to turn into the, because IKEA is a Swedish company, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to say the Swedish name of the object in order to turn into it. But then we'd fall into the issue of when I'm in Sweden and people are talking about inanimate objects, I would be,
that's your kryptonite.
I can't do crime.
You can't do
in
crime
Sweden.
there. Yeah.
Can't.
Oh, you're automatically assuming you'd be a villain.
Well, no, I'm just saying I can't go there because the word saying something to me in Sweden would trigger me turning into that object. So it's the Swedes would take advantage of me, and I can't do that. I can't.
Your arch
I can't fight crime
nemesis
over
is
there.
Swedish.
That's a good one.
The Swedish chef is basically your nemesis. Bork, 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 and you're like, no, no more borks.
Okay, that's my story.
I love it. What about you, Steve?
I can't top that. I don't know. I feel like the please help me power would be similar to Madison's. You know that skill they do in the Matrix where there's I want to know Kung Fu. So they just all the knowledge of Kung Fu just gets downloaded into their brain. And then they're I know Kung Fu. That would be. So
you can be it's called techno hyper brain or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. That would be
you
dope.
Have the ability.
I know everything now. Cool.
Okay.
But I think I've always been fascinated by the powers that Magneto has from the X-Men. The master of magnetism.
Yeah.
I almost said mysticism.
Different entirely.
Entirely. Yeah.
Electromagnetic stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could touch Rogue.
Yeah, you could. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that seemingly keeps being able to be done with that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pick that. I'm gonna pick Magneto's powers.
Okay.
Power
So you
Magnetism.
went more like, that'd be dope.
That would be dope.
I kind of did too. I try to think of like my personality. I'm a little bit of a hothead, have a bit of a temper. So I probably end up with like a Johnny Storm kind of thing.
Are you flaming on?
I would flame on.
Flame on.
Yeah. Which I assume is like almost a translucent kind of situation because every time you flame on, you burn your clothes off.
So you gotta be comfortable being naked now.
Yes, which is we know I'm not. You want to shot a Crown
Flame
Royal?
on, but look away.
Famously shy person.
Guys, shut your eyes.
Yeah, I'd have to stay on fire.
And they'd be like, "Why? Because you're too bright." Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
Not.
Not because I'm naked.
I would need like a flame retardant sock.
You could say like
A Crown Royal bag.
a Swedish phrase to like turn me into a table, and you can like hide behind me while you change, like a little, what's it called?
That's not fair to
The
you.
divider, like a room divider.
You're just like. This is terrible.
I'm not gonna be on the 7. That's for
It's
sure.
the worst superhero team ever.
Steve's the one fighting crime, and I'm like trying to hide your like naked body.
He knows everything. She is my bars, my sensor bars.
Oh no, guys!
IKEA.
It's the Swedish
I'm
chef.
like blurry.
The Swedish chef is here.
Ah!
No.
I'm gonna be exposed. Your superhero name would be Triggered. And
Triggered.
yeah, because they can just say things. And
Yeah. I thought you were saying that's what my name would be. Triggered.
That's what I am.
It's triggered.
But only because they can just shout Swedish things at you
That's fair.
and trigger that response.
Okay. That makes sense.
But also it's a pun on your generation, you know?
Triggered. Yeah. Makes sense.
What is your superhero name? You never said.
Oh, I didn't even think that hard.
Cum metal.
Cum metal. Okay.
That was just at the top of my head.
Cum
Sorry.
metal. Yeah, I'm cum metal. I say cum and then metal.
Oh, I get it. I don't like that at all.
I don't cum metal.
I was like, what?
If it's a whole new
thing that
meaning to
came up.
firing blanks, am I right?
It's the first thing that popped in my head. Sorry.
Interesting.
What's your superpower name? Or superhero name?
Flamer.
Flamer.
There you go.
Flamin' hot Cheetos.
I think you should go with hot toddy.
Toddy.
Sure.
Get ready to face justice with a nice hot toddy. Flame on, but look away. Look away, please. Look away. Look away, please.
I need cum metal.
Triggered. Come here.
I think we need to start our trio.
Hot toddy, triggered, and cum metal. Together, they are the
We're not.
streaming society.
I would love for Stillwell to try and sell us to a town. It would be interesting.
Cum metal is definitely going on the Bible Belt loop.
For sure.
We'd be hot.
For sure.
We'd be hot in Sandusky.
Oh yeah.
I feel like.
Oh, my boy Steve in Sandusky, he's gonna get us all free passes.
Crime is
They
down.
would always be at the amusement park fixing their shit.
Crime has dropped 2% since we came to town.
Also, the department stores have sold a lot of clothes because Chris is going through all of them.
Keep burning through them. Triggered quickly.
Great news, guys! An IKEA opened up down the street. No, we have to move.
Shit. Shit.
We do
I
have
stay away
one.
from Winchester. I'm not allowed over there.
I'm not allowed to in the IKEA anyway. So
Why?
I just buy too much stuff.
Because he's naked.
Yeah, because I'm naked. It's faster for me to travel with my flame on. But unfortunately, when I get there, so that would be our powers. You can email streamingthingspod@gmail.com to tell me what your powers would be. If you can beat cum metal, I bet you can't.
Sure, just try.
Good luck. That's all we're saying. You can go to patreon.com/streamingthings to hear the rest of the Game of Thrones coverage or just support the show. Extra bonus episodes drop every month in addition to our Game of Thrones coverage. But I do want to talk about, before we wrap up, some of our favorite moments and then kind of where season 1 leaves everybody heading into season 2. Are there any big things that happened that you want to highlight that we didn't talk about thus far?
Oh man, there's so many good moments. I mean, from the fact that they blow Translucent up by sticking C4 up his ass.
Huge moment for Huey, too, when he
Yeah.
kind of goes all in that moment. Like, you know what? I am a murderer. I'm so mad about Robin.
He commits to killing officially.
And that's pretty much exactly how it happens in the comics, as I recall, as well. There's an anal insertion.
I do wonder, like, if Translucent's skin is impenetrable, right?
Sure.
And they put C4, wouldn't it be like an internal explosion? Would it have exploded like it does? I don't know. It's just a weird thing to think about, I think.
What do you mean?
Like, if his skin can't be destroyed, like, would he blow up like that? Would he
Oh,
just,
you mean
like,
it would have been contained?
Would his guts just be contained? Ooh, and he just, like, falls over?
I think that's interesting. I never thought about it like that. I think it's just more vulnerable from the inside, and so it does break apart.
Maybe the breaking apart starts in the anus, and then it just...
At an atomic level, it starts to break apart, and therefore his skin, does explode.
Just a fun thought exercise.
But I feel like visually, I'm sure
it's way
having
cooler
it-
if he
yeah,
blows up.
blows
Yeah,
up,
yeah,
yeah.
It's way cooler.
Yeah. I feel like another like moment is when Maeve and Homelander, Queen Maeve and Homelander sabotage saving the plane, and it becomes a huge point of contention with Maeve and like her moral compass.
Oh,
Of,
it's a crazy moment.
Heartbreaking.
yeah, and you're kind of in between yourself because you're just like, you are Maeve in that situation, and Homelander's like, well, if we save these people, they're gonna out us both, whatever. And so Maeve is like, well, fuck,
She's like, take my baby. At least take my baby.
like,
And he's like, we
take
can't.
my kids. Yeah.
Can't save anybody or we'll be busted.
And so they just watch this plane essentially crash in the middle of the ocean with all of these people. And
it's Homelander's fault because he laser-eyed the pilot.
yes, it is. And he's like, wow, I can't fly a plane. Whoopsies. And Maeve is like, what the fuck, So that scene was very shocking for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I love, it's an aspect of Homelander's character that he's like kind of lazy. There's a lot more effective and smarter ways to do everything that he does, but he just like, he'll just laser vision. You know what I mean? Like it just makes it worse. It's kind of a weird, and that's because that's how you'd be if you could do that,
Because he's petulant. He's like petty and
I'd be microwaving dishes with my eyes and shit and like just destroying everything, killing somebody in the next office over because I was trying to heat up a muffin,
Well, again, when you look at, again, kind of the juxtaposition of Annie's character and these characters, it's like Homelander's been raised in this environment. He's been a celebrity, quote unquote, his whole life. Like, this is just another day in the job. He's been in situations like this before. He's just sloppy because he's been doing this for so long. And he doesn't necessarily feel the moral compass to have to like save these people because he's been doing it for his entire life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And there's a small moment, but I think it's so indicative of who he is. It's when he and Maeve show up to stop that shooter. And he's like, oh, he does this whole shtick where he's waving to the police like, you guys are the real heroes. Hey, everybody, we're here. Time to save the day, Maeve. And he flies up to the 30th floor where the shooter is and leaves Maeve. And Maeve is like, okay, where are the elevators? And then it cuts to her getting off the elevator and he's just standing there leaning against the wall waiting for her. Like, he could have flew her up there with him, but he doesn't. And he could have taken care of the shooter like that, but he's literally just like, just waiting. Where's Maeve at? I want to continue our conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's such a dick.
Absolutely. And you never know what he's, and that's what I love about it. It's very Game of Thronesy in the sense that like he could do literally anything and it wouldn't be fair for you to be surprised just because it's like, there's no rules on who he is. And some things happen in later seasons that I can't wait to talk about that shocked the shit out of me. That even though we've already seen him do all this stuff, I was still like, fuck, dude. But yeah, huge. So where we end up with season 1, ultimately the important things to remember are that Becca is alive. Becca Butcher is alive. Butcher tries to kill himself, essentially. He thinks the jig is up when Stillwell gets laser faced, which is awful.
That was a crazy scene as well.
Yeah. Again, he's obsessed with her. It's the only person he trusts and kind of loves, but she's lied to him. He verified her information with another CEO at Vought and their stories were different. And so he in his mind, he had given her one last chance. So he just laser eyes her in the face from point blank. And Butcher's like, oh, that's that then. And just tries to blow himself up. But Homelander flies him out as the building explodes because he wants him to see. He wants to hurt him that his wife is alive and that Homelander has a son. And that's where things are left off.
Yeah.
Where's it going to go?
Where's it going to go?
We do know.
A-Train has a heart attack. The boys escape.
And not only
their
that, but
capture.
Huey decided to save A-Train,
Yeah.
who killed Robin because he's better than that, you know?
Yeah.
And Starlight decides to trust Huey and the boys and save them as well.
Start fighting back.
And start fighting back against the system.
The system.
The system.
I saw a tweet yesterday. I'm paraphrasing, but essentially, nothing is funnier than one of your friends slightly messing up a word.
It's true. I do that all the time.
all the time.
Because that's happened a couple times on this pod. But and then somebody quote tweeted it, and this tweet had like 60,000 likes. That's how much people identify with this. She's like, I'll never forget when one of my friends, she came over to tell us something important, and she pronounced fugue as fagoo. And to this day, 10 years later, she could be telling us her dad died, and we'll be like, oh, did that put you in a fagoo state? I bet. Like, that's awful. It's just how humans are. You'll never let it go.
No.
So
Nor should you.
that is the essence of streaming things, is just taking a joke like that and running it into the ground for
Literally.
37 episodes.
Literally.
It's just who we are.
It's who we are.
I do want to mention before we exit out, because we're about done with this coverage of season 1. We've mentioned everything that I love about season 1 for the most part, except for Butcher's iconic Spice Girls speech.
Yes.
It's
Oh
probably my
God.
favorite moment.
That's how I feel about this show.
Yeah.
Kidding.
By myself, I'm just Sporty Spice. What have I done by myself since? Nothing. But as streaming things, with the fucking Spice Girls.
Spice Girls.
Why do you know so much about the Spice Girls?
Who doesn't? Plus, he's British. Like, it totally tracks.
Yeah.
By the way,
It makes sense.
we should cover Spice World on the show. So we can get a DVD copy of that.
I'd be down for that.
I would
Have you ever
love to
seen
do
Spice
that.
World? Oh, it's going to blow your mind.
I'm ready
Cinematic
for it.
masterpiece. Maybe, perhaps, I don't know. Maybe better than Ghost Ship.
Maybe.
I don't
That's
know.
a hard maybe.
That's a
I don't know
tall
about
order. So tune in next Friday for our coverage of season 2 of The Boys. And then we'll cover season 3 the following week, just in time for season 4 to drop. We got all kinds of stuff coming in hot at you. And stay tuned for the House of the Dragon coverage and join the Patreon if you want more of that Game of Thrones action, because we're going to be covering, if we get enough, people interested in that, members joining, we'll cover all 8 seasons of that shit. Who knows?
Yeah, Patreon tiers are changing on June 1st. You know what else is happening June 1st?
Summer equinox. I don't know.
Tickets for the Streaming Things
Tickets.
live show go on sale for Patreon members on June 1st at the $25 tier. A couple days later, other patrons will have access to those tiers. If you're not a patron, tickets go live for you on June 8th.
Yep.
So June 8th for everybody. Tickets go on sale June 1st for Patreon members. Get your tickets. We love to see you.
October 5th,
October
right?
5th is our
5th.
live show. Our very first one. Come on out. You'll get to see a great show.
In the flesh, you will get to see Flamer, Cum Metal, and Triggered.
Triggered.
That's right.
Just please don't shout IKEA words. when you
Please
get there.
don't.
I need that shit covered. So do you. Trust me. But thank you for listening. I'm super excited for our episode by episode coverage of The Boys season 4. Hope you're excited as well. That's all the time we have for right now. We've got to go return some videotapes. My name is Kit,
My name's Madison.
And I'm Steve.
and this was Streaming Things, streaming The Boys. The Boys.
The boys.